Welcome to Alpha. You're listening to the 100 Podcast, a show about CW's sci-fi series, The 100. I'm Dan, your mountain man, and today I'm joined by my favorite grounder, Olga.
Hey everybody, today we're discussing Season 6, Episode 1, entitled Sanctum.
This is our first podcast that is both audio and video. So if you're listening to us on audio services, you can also go to youtube.com/doingok. Check us out on video. This season, we're doing something new. Instead of me just reacting to the episodes, now it's me and Olga. We're going to do a mini podcast right after each episode of The 100 with our first impressions. Then later down the line, we will do a longer thing where we go through each scene, where we rewatch, where we read your feedback and talk about it. But these are our off-the-cuff reactions.
Off the plate?
Right, just take them right off the plate. Throw the plate out of there. What did you think of Sanctum?
I think it was a premiere.
Yes.
Wow.
Wowie. I think we both enjoyed it, but we both also felt like we hurt the episode for ourselves by picking apart the trailer so much.
Things we do for content.
And also, we were both spoiled through Twitter about Shaw dying, which was mostly my fault. I didn't want to be spoiled, but I also couldn't help but be spoiled.
I'm just going to blame them for putting out the first episode at WonderCon.
Yeah.
I'm going to take all responsibility off of us and just put it on them.
So it almost felt like because we had pieced out like almost everything that happened, right, between the two trailers they put out. And
good amount.
And so it was like, here's an extended version of the trailer with lots of good little pieces here and there, but like it made the episode feel slower because we're like, now we need to get to this point. We get to this point. How far are we going to get?
Next? What's going to happen next? It's like, oh, there's something I didn't expect.
Yeah. So that all the pieces, because of that, like things like Octavia and Kane facing off, that was my favorite part of the episode. Yeah. Because I had no idea it was coming.
Exactly.
Yeah. They spent a significant period of time on like setting up Shaw, and we knew setting up like the importance of Shaw in this episode. And we knew he was gonna die, so it was all just like, okay, let's get to that.
Yeah.
And in general, a lot of the things I feel like were like, we already seen like a lot of the beautiful scenic shots that have been happened.
The things that are full of like wonder to them were used to death in their promo images and clips.
Yeah.
And Shaw, when you know that he's going to die, the investment in him and Raven and him lecturing Clark and giving his like monologue sermon thing it just becomes, it feels very heavy-handed because I was like, I'm not getting invested in this, and like, what does he know?
Yeah.
I mean, also, we didn't really
connect
like
with him to begin with.
That's a very polite way of putting it. From season 5.
Yeah.
So he didn't have this like goodwill from us necessarily, which sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened if like I think the actor had some other things he was working on. I don't know if there was just contract issues, if there was issues with the writing team. I feel pretty solid in saying this was not the original plan for that character.
I believe it. Unless the fandom really was like, so we're killing you off.
I don't think it was the original plan, and I think they tried to rush in as much as they could with him before he died.
Yeah.
Which I could feel it. Right, it felt a little ham-fisted, and then even him being like, "Earn this" at the end of it, I was just like, "Okay, that was a little much." But I really liked Murphy in this episode.
Murphy was the MVP of the team that went onto the planet / moon. It's a moon. It's not a planet.
Alpha.
Planet Moon Alpha.
Which, weirdly enough, this episode's called Sanctum, and no one ever says Sanctum, but then we know they're gonna say Sanctum, so it's just interesting. But
it's a choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, without Murphy, I feel like it wouldn't have been as enjoyable.
Yeah, well, I mean, between his moment jumping in the water, his jibes towards everyone that felt like fun, like none of them felt like they went too far. Right.
Which Murphy could easily do.
So it was just like, it was almost like he was being the audience in a lot of ways, and I think that worked really well. And then him singing at the end was great.
Yeah.
And then putting him in peril as like the first person in peril from Amori. I think he and Maury actually were both really good in this episode.
They were both really good, yeah.
A lot of things we didn't see in the trailer were my favorite moments, right? So, him singing, Clark and Bellamy actually talking about the radio call stuff, I thought was a really good scene.
Something that we'd been hoping for, asking for. I'm glad they play around with that, calling her pathetic.
Well, I was trying to remember whether it was Bob or Eliza that mentioned that in Conageddon, that they're like, it's a little bit desperate.
I think it was Eliza. It was like, it's a bit desperate, girl. And it's like, a little bit.
But I like that. I think that their delivery of that whole back and forth was good.
Yeah. I'm even a bit like reinvested in like Jackson and Miller.
Yeah. Well, Jackson probably had more in this episode than he's like almost ever had, and I liked him interacting with Miller there. There were a lot of small little things, and it was a slower paced episode. It feels weird that it was an hour long. I'm like, what happened in this whole hour? Think about this episode versus like what all the things that occurred in the first episode of last season. I feel like so much more happened, but
it honestly felt like when they cut to commercial. Or whatever you want to call it, like the very end where it's the teaser for next week. I'm like, aren't we about to see that right now? Like, it felt like we should have gotten a 2-hour premiere.
Yeah.
I think that would have been appropriate, honestly. I still feel
like you were left wanting more.
And not in the way where it's like, oh, I'm at the edge of my seat. I want more. If this was a bingeable show, I'm like, oh, please. Like, it just felt natural to give us a 2-hour premiere.
I agree.
So,
and again, I think part of it is because we knew everything that was happening.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to see that carry through. I don't know how you... The thing is, I don't know what the best way to market a show is. To a certain degree, I mean, like... I feel like they should have given us a way more vague trailer. I mean, it's on us for watching the trailer, but like...
But also the fact that the trailer was withheld or worked on or whatever you want to call it, like for so long that it was just a 1-2 punch between getting both trailers, wanting them after so long, and then just having the show premiere.
Yeah.
It felt like a really fast turnaround time. Like, I didn't have any room to forget anything. And I watched the second trailer only once.
Yeah.
So...
I think part of the problem, too, is it goes beyond that. It goes to the fact that, like, there's so much fallout happening as far as stuff from last season and everything, and that there is this idea of like book 2, and like for me it's been so long since season 5 that like it's like almost frustrating seeing them deal with the fallout of stuff from before, which it might be a personal thing, but like I'm like so few of the characters were actually likable to me in this episode. Like I felt bad for Clark. Because I'm like, yeah, okay, she fucked up a lot. But also, like, come on, guys, how many times did she say... Like, Murphy makes the joke about, like, oh, it's like the 6th time you've needed a new start. And I'm like, yeah, but it's also, like, the 30th time that she saved her asses.
Yeah.
And I'm like... and, like, Raven, I, like, understand where she's coming from, but she's not likable here. And neither is Octavia, and neither is Kane, and neither is Abby.
If Octavia was likable in this episode, hell would have frozen over.
Yeah, but like...
I mean, that's exactly it. Like, it's hard to... They made this artificial problem for themselves of clearly we want fallout from 5 because that's good storytelling. Like,
so I don't know how is that artificial then if you're saying it's good storytelling?
But by saying book 2, it implies that you are getting a breath of fresh air. And I would say that having Jordan and a new planet and new people is not enough of a breath of fresh air yet. Because that's kind of par for the course.
Well, and because we really are like very fully still talking about like, oh, Nyla let Octavia out. We're talking about Miller and everything he did in the bunker.
We're talking about Abby's drug problem because it's not like that's just going to go away. So like people being angry and not trusting each other and needing to earn that back. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. But the thing is that we so desperately wanted that in season 5 of like, you're going to have the time jump and then you're gonna have them getting on the same page. You don't expect or want people to be even further apart in some ways.
Well, I think the problem is that we just didn't like so much of what happened in season 5 that seeing that the fact that we have to deal with that with the leftovers of that is a little frustrating.
I don't think we're alone in feeling that way though.
I don't know. On the flip side, like I said, I mean, I don't know what you feel, but like I thought that the Kane and Octavia scene was awesome.
Again, you brought up of maybe the reason that felt so good was because we really didn't expect it or know what was going to happen. Yeah. But even like we kind of should have known they would have a face off of some kind.
Well, I didn't think Octavia would actually be out this episode.
Yeah.
I thought she'd be out like episode 2, and I didn't think it was Nyla that let her out.
Yeah, that was an interesting. That was good. Yeah. But their conflict was definitely the best conflict that we saw in the episode.
Yeah.
And I think it's the one that it wanted us to, like, they knew that would be a big emotional punch and very like tense scene, even though we had other emotional things of Abby and Raven throughout the episode. There's they put two powerhouses together, people who had reasonable conflict in season 5.
Yeah.
That was written well. Like they're
issues with
different. Their different senses of morality continue to be an issue here. And I mean, I thought it was a really good way to keep Henry and Cusick.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was torn about that part. Let's get back to that in a second.
Okay.
The actual scene of their interaction. I mean, it wasn't just that it was good fallout from season 5. It was also that they had fallout from like all of the seasons. That she brought up like what he did on the Ark and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think it worked because it was almost like it was just using the history, and it almost reminded me again of an argument between the fans, right?
Yeah.
But in a way that was well written and really well portrayed by both of them.
Yeah.
And she really does. He eats into Kane, and I love that because I feel like he was so self-righteous for so long, and no one was really taking him to task for it. And I like that he also brought up the farm and everything else. I think
because the thing is, her rebuttals to him were good up until that point of like, you wanted us to just starve, and then he takes the idea of like starvation. It's like, what about the farm? Like your power, your vanity.
Yeah.
And that's, as fans, that's basically the same argument that a lot of us were having too.
Yeah. So as far as him surviving, it definitely felt like, let's put him on ice because we don't know if we can get Henry and Cusick back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think it probably wouldn't be a good way for the character to die, because it's just like someone shouting at you and then you like try to fight back and then you're just dead. Because it's interesting, because when I was watching, I'm like, he should die here. This is a great way for him to be done with. But at the same time, now that I have a little bit thought process about it, I'm like, well, he doesn't really have like his moment. But in some ways, I feel like it would have been interesting for Abby if he died there, right?
Yeah. We got that in a lot of ways. We got that interesting. Yeah. I mean, we don't have her like mourning.
Yeah.
But if she comes out of this still being like, no, this time I'm not backing away from my emotions. I'm not going to numb the pain and my fear, and I'm here.
Yeah.
And I feel like if he died, it would have been a lot harder for
us to buy that.
That's a little too extreme for like Abby to have that, 180.
Yeah. I guess my problem is that, well, I'm arguing with myself before I even say it. My problem is, so if they do get him back, then it's just like, okay, now we have Kane back, a character we don't really need, and probably at this point in the season have proven we don't need. Or you have to kill him, and now it's like way after the fact, and is that kind of lame? But I guess her having a moment where she just like pull the plug, that could be a good moment.
I could see that. As for him coming back, I don't know. A lot of the stuff with the show experience has, I think, finally taught me that I won't be able to decide if something's a good or bad choice
until it happens.
Until like the season is done.
Yeah.
Because I feel like season predictions for us are going to be difficult because are going to be difficult for me because pacing is not something that they've always nailed 100%. And we just talked about how this felt very slow and like minimal.
I think it was slow. It was mostly slow in a good way, I would say.
Mostly.
I think it just felt extra slow in a bad way because we knew what was happening.
Right.
I
understand.
Because we know not only like what happens now, that we know like what happens probably until like episode 3 or 4 or something, that everything is gonna feel slow because you're like, okay, I know what happens up to this point. What happens next? And what happens next isn't going to really come until like episode 4, probably.
Yeah.
So it's...
watching a trailer shouldn't feel this way, you know? It's a trailer.
Yeah, I think it should have been like a minute and a half, probably, but...
I don't know. But point is that with things like that, and with things like Kane, and honestly, even things like Raven and what's his name's relationship. See, don't even care anymore. Their relationship and how they affect the season. I won't know how to feel about them until it's all wrapped up, because it's all about like how much of the season they feel like they take up and how much of our emotional energy as fans and viewers who are invested in the show. How much we invest in like the wrong places versus the right places. And sometimes that getting it wrong is still fun because it goes around your expectations. But sometimes it's like, wait, I imagine something a lot more like intense. So I just wish this episode had a little bit more intensity.
Yeah, I mean, well, so what do you feel like it was missing for you? Because I mean, do you think they should have gotten to more of the sunlight stuff? Because they did have, it's not like they didn't have action. I mean, they
had the punctuation with, like, I feel like where they left it off was pretty good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it just felt like there was a little bit. Honestly, the problem is just Shaw, just the amount of screen time he had, and it honestly, like, even if we hadn't known, the fact is that it feels like not the right kind of way to surprise someone because he monologues, because he's so preachy. It feels like he knows Raven so well. And I'm like, you don't fucking know Raven. Like, I don't know. I don't really...
We just both really never liked him.
We just really never liked him. And I think that's it. I honestly feel like if he didn't feel like they wasted a third of an episode with him being the emotional center, I don't think I would have felt so negative.
Well, and the other thing is, I think that they spent a lot of their slow time bringing up things that are like mythology and plot related, which I am interested to dissect in detail when we go back and rewatch everything. They mention a lot of stuff about Becca, a lot of stuff about the history of the planets they're on and all that stuff. But that's not, like, character stuff. So, like, it's like, the character stuff, I feel like you can boil down to, like, the little moments by the water, and then, like, the Clark and Bellamy scene, and I guess, like, Raven and Abby going back and forth. But it's like, again, I didn't know what to feel with the Raven Abby thing, because Abby is the one in the wrong. But we, as a viewer, are also, like, we saw her go through her journey, and, like, we believe that she is probably off the pills and going to stay off the pills. Like, I don't think they're going to go back to that necessarily.
I think that would be a bad choice.
And so it almost makes me more annoyed at Raven because she's being so harsh. And I'm like, but I shouldn't be annoyed at Raven because I was
justified.
Like, it gets into... So the other thing is, a lot of people were very... And I'm interested to see what your opinion is, but a lot of people were very upset about the line about, like, just go take your pills and kill yourself so we can move on.
I understand why she feels that way. Like, I understand why Raven, the character, feels that way.
A lot of people felt like that was just bad messaging representationally.
And that's where I'm like, but... And, you know, it's not always going to... People saying the right thing all the time is not always interesting.
I think that... And then other people were saying they felt like it was out of character for her. And I'm like, we haven't really seen what her character is in association to her mom and her backstory in that part. Like...
They kept it... It's not that they kept it vague, because we do know about her mom's, like, drinking problem. But at the same time... they let Raven down so low in the previous season that now I feel like having her be combative with Abby and combative with Clark.
With basically everyone.
And align herself with Shaw.
Well, and that we know it's only going to get worse because now Shaw's dead. So, like, that's the thing, too.
So by making this character, I feel like was underutilized, and then making... I mean, her anger makes sense. a lot of the time I use the analogy of there's a character who gets in the way of the fun.
Yeah.
And even though they're logical a lot of the time, be it because of illegal activity, like
the housewife, like Skylar and
Breaking Bad, like
what's her name in Dexter, all that stuff.
The point is that these like very often female characters are like, oh, but you as a viewer don't agree with them, even though logically as a person you would a lot of the time. And I feel like Raven's anger, while justified, isn't pleasant because I believed in Abby this time. Like I believed in her journey. Her journey was like one of the few that I feel like really went to a good place in season 5. Like
it's fine.
It's fine. I listened to our season finale podcast. You were actually more positive about it at the time.
My thought process is, as long as they show her having more than just anger towards Abby, I'm okay with it being angry right now.
For now.
Right? Because here's the thing, like, she does bring up that, like, it specifically is worse than her mom because her mom never hurt her. And it would make sense that she would be harboring, like, bitterness and resentment and anger towards her mom, that her mom drank herself and wasn't there to protect her and all that stuff. And that now that is bursting out on her new mother figure. Like, that anger makes sense. It's just, I feel like it would have helped if there was a scene where she screamed at her, Abby walked away, and then we saw her break a little bit.
Yeah.
Like her beat.
Just like, a little bit soft.
Just a small moment of her like actually hurting about it rather than just raging about it, I think would have helped a lot.
A little bit.
Yeah. Also, I just want to say 2 other people that I thought were good in this episode were Bellamy and Echo. Yes. Because they were both like, we're ready to forgive people and move on. And I'm like, that's what I want. So
Echo's like, team, of course forgive people. That's how I got here. And I'm just like, I'm happy you're here.
All right. Any other major things we want to throw out before we
I think on rewatch.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot building up to this.
Yeah.
I think on rewatch, I will be more open-minded to this episode, and my thoughts are going to settle, and I'm going to be more hopeful about. It's not that I'm not hopeful for the rest of the season. I'm just like cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
I think that we'll do a better job of digging into those little tidbits and start building the trails a little bit more than what the trailer showed us.
Yeah. All right, so that's the end of our first mini impressions. We're going to do a longer audio podcast where you guys can throw in your opinions. You can comment down below on the YouTube video, or you can go to our website, the100podcast.com. That has a contact us form, or you can email us at the100pod@gmail.com, tweet us at the100podcast, and that's most of the ways you can talk to us, right? There's probably other ways.
Don't come to our house. That's the one way you can't talk to us.
So we're going to do a longer audio podcast. It's going to go up by Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is the sort of schedule we're going to aim for, is doing these videos right after the episode and then audio podcast later in the week, so we have time to get in all your feedback, go through it all, rewatch the episode, all that stuff. So check us out in audio podcast services such as iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, and you can just go to our website, the100podcast.com, to get links to all that stuff. Any last words?
Make algae, not war.
And may we meet again.
May we meet again.